Your mind is either your greatest weapon or your biggest weakness. And right now, if you're honest with yourself, it's probably working against you. Every single day, your brain is running programs that keep you small, keep you average, and keep you trapped in patterns that are slowly destroying your potential. These aren't just bad habits we're talking about. These are mental viruses that have infected your subconscious and are literally rewiring your brain for mediocrity. While 99% of people live their entire lives as prisoners to their own minds, completely unaware that they're being controlled by invisible forces, you're about to discover how to break free from that mental prison and reprogram your brain for success. By the time you finish this video, you will understand exactly how your mind creates these destructive patterns, why willpower and motivation will never save you, and most importantly, the precise system to eliminate weak habits at their source and replace them with automatic success behaviors. This isn't about positive thinking or motivational fluff. This is about understanding the neuroscience of habit formation and using that knowledge to literally rewire your brain. So if you're ready to stop being a victim of your own mind and start being the architect of your thoughts, let's begin. Chapter 1. The hidden enemy inside your brain. Right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is running thousands of automated programs that you have no conscious awareness of. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every action you take is being influenced by neural pathways that were carved into your mind through years of repetition. And here's the terrifying truth that most people never realize. The majority of these programs are working against you. Your subconscious mind, which controls 95% of your daily thoughts and actions, has been programmed by your past experiences, your environment, your fears, and the limiting beliefs that were installed in you since childhood. It's running on outdated software that was designed to keep you safe, not successful. Every time you procrastinate, every time you choose the easy path over the hard one, every time you sabotage your own progress, that's not you making those decisions. That's your subconscious running its default programming. Think about the last time you wanted to change something about your life. Maybe you wanted to wake up early, exercise consistently, eat healthier, or stop wasting time on social media. You probably started with enthusiasm, made some progress for a few days or weeks, and then slowly slipped back into your old patterns. You told yourself you lacked willpower or motivation, but that's not what happened. What happened was your subconscious mind detected a threat to its established programming and pulled you back to your comfort zone. Your brain has a negativity bias that's hardwired from evolution. It's designed to focus on threats, problems, and everything that could go wrong. This was useful when our ancestors needed to survive in dangerous environments. But in today's world, this same programming is sabotaging your success. Your brain is constantly scanning for reasons why you can't achieve your goals, why you're not good enough, and why you should stay exactly where you are. Every weak habit you have is not a character flaw or a lack of discipline. It's a neural pathway that's been strengthened through repetition until it became automatic. When you reach for your phone first thing in the morning, when you procrastinate on important tasks, when you choose immediate gratification over long-term success, you're not making conscious decisions. You're being controlled by neural programs that run below your conscious awareness. The most successful people in the world understand this fundamental truth. You cannot change your life without changing your mind. They don't rely on willpower or motivation because they know these are finite resources that will eventually run out. Instead, They focus on reprogramming their subconscious mind to work for them instead of against them. They understand that lasting change happens at the neural level, not at the surface level of conscious decision-making. But here's what's even more disturbing. Most people go through their entire lives never realizing they're being controlled by these invisible forces. They think their thoughts are their own, their decisions are conscious choices, and their habits are just who they are. They accept mediocrity as their reality because they don't understand that they have the power to rewrite their mental programming. The first step to breaking free from weak habits is recognizing that you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, and you are definitely not your automatic behaviors. You are the observer of these things. And as the observer, you have the power to change them. But only if you're willing to go deeper than surface-level solutions and address the root cause of all weak habits. Your subconscious programming, Chapter 2. Why your current approach to habits is failing you. Let me guess how you've tried to change your habits in the past. You identified a bad habit you wanted to eliminate. You tried to stop doing it through sheer willpower. And when that didn't work, you beat yourself up and concluded that you just don't have enough discipline. Or maybe you tried the opposite approach. You focused on building new, positive habits by forcing yourself to do them every day until they became automatic. Both of these approaches are fundamentally flawed and doomed to fail. The reason 92% of people fail to achieve their goals and eliminate their weak habits has nothing to do with lack of willpower or discipline. It has everything to do with the fact that they're fighting the wrong battle. They're trying to change their behaviors at the conscious level while ignoring the subconscious programming that's actually driving those behaviors. Here's what happens when you rely on willpower to change habits. Willpower is like a muscle that gets tired with use. Every decision you make throughout the day depletes your willpower reserves. By the evening, when your willpower is exhausted, your subconscious programming takes over and pulls you right back into your old patterns. This is why people can be disciplined all day and then binge on junk food at night. It's why they can resist temptation for weeks and then completely fall off track in a moment of weakness. Most habit advice tells you to start small, be consistent, and track your progress. While these strategies can help at the surface level, they're missing the most critical component: addressing the underlying beliefs and neural patterns that created the weak habit in the first place. You can try to build a new habit of waking up early. But if your subconscious mind believes that you're not a morning person, if it associates early mornings with discomfort and struggle, it will sabotage your efforts every single time. The self-help industry has sold people the lie that changing habits is just about changing behaviors. But behaviors are just the visible symptoms of deeper mental programs. If you only focus on changing the behavior without changing the underlying program, you're essentially putting a band-aid on a broken bone. The habit might disappear temporarily, but it will always return because the root cause is still there. Another reason your current approach is failing is that you're trying to eliminate habits instead of replacing them. Here's a fundamental principle of neuroscience. You cannot simply delete a neural pathway. Once a neural pathway is formed, it remains in your brain forever. The only way to overcome a weak habit is to create a stronger neural pathway that overrides it. This is why people who try to quit smoking by just stopping often fail. But those who replace smoking with a healthier habit like exercise have much higher success rates. Most people also make the mistake of trying to change too many habits at once. They get motivated, and decide they're going to wake up early, exercise daily, eat perfectly, meditate, read more, and eliminate all their bad habits simultaneously. This overloads their conscious mind and depletes their willpower faster than ever. Your brain can only handle so much change at once, and when you overwhelm it, it will default back to its original programming. The biggest mistake people make is fighting against their weak habits instead of understanding them. Every habit, even the ones you consider bad, exists because it serves some function in your life. Maybe procrastination protects you from the fear of failure. Maybe scrolling social media provides temporary relief from stress or boredom. Maybe overeating gives you comfort when you're feeling overwhelmed. Until you understand what function your weak habits are serving and find healthier ways to meet those underlying needs, you'll always be fighting an uphill battle. Your brain is not designed to eliminate habits. It's designed to automate behaviors to conserve energy. This is why trying to break habits through force rarely works long-term. Instead of fighting against your brain's natural tendencies, you need to work with them. You need to understand how habits are formed at the neurological level and use that knowledge to strategically rewire your brain. The solution isn't more discipline or stronger willpower. The solution is understanding that lasting habit change requires reprogramming your subconscious mind. And that's exactly what you're about to learn how to do. Chapter 3. The Neuroscience of Mental Slavery. How your brain keeps you trapped. Your brain is running your life on autopilot. And most of the time, that autopilot is flying you straight into mediocrity. To understand how to break free from weak habits, you need to understand exactly how your brain creates and maintains these automated behaviors that keep you trapped in patterns you consciously want to escape. Every habit begins with a neural pathway. Think of neural pathways like trails in a forest. The first time you walk through the forest, you have to push through thick brush and navigate around obstacles. It's difficult and requires conscious effort. But if you walk the same path over and over again, eventually you create a clear trail that becomes easy to follow. Your brain works the same way. Every time you repeat a behavior, you strengthen the neural pathway associated with that behavior. The scary part is that your brain doesn't differentiate between good habits and bad habits. It simply automates whatever you repeat most frequently. If you check your phone every time you feel bored, your brain will create a strong neural pathway that automatically triggers phone checking whenever boredom arises. If you procrastinate every time you face a challenging task, your brain will automate procrastination as your default response to difficulty. Here's where it gets even more disturbing. These neural pathways don't just control your behaviors, they control your thoughts and emotions too. When you've strengthened a particular pathway through repetition, it becomes your brain's preferred route. So when you encounter a trigger situation, your brain automatically sends signals down that pathway before your conscious mind even has a chance to intervene. This is why changing habits feels so difficult. You're not just fighting against a behavior. You're fighting against a deeply ingrained neural superhighway that your brain has been using for months or years. Your conscious mind might want to change, but your subconscious mind is still running the old program. And since your subconscious is much more powerful than your conscious mind, it usually wins. The basal ganglia is the part of your brain responsible for habit formation. It's constantly looking for ways to automate behaviors to save energy. Once it identifies a pattern of trigger, behavior, and reward, it locks that pattern into your brain as an automatic routine. The problem is that once this happens, the behavior becomes largely unconscious. You stop actively choosing to do it. You just do it automatically. This is why you can drive to work without consciously thinking about every turn. Why you can brush your teeth while thinking about something completely different, and why you can automatically reach for your phone without making a conscious decision to check it. Your basal ganglia has automated these behaviors to free up your conscious mind for other tasks. But here's the crucial part that most people don't understand. The basal ganglia doesn't just automate physical behaviors. It also automates thought patterns and emotional responses. If you've repeatedly responded to stress by feeling overwhelmed and helpless, your brain will automate that emotional response. If you've repeatedly told yourself that you're not good enough whenever you face a challenge, your brain will automate that thought pattern. Your brain is constantly reinforcing these automated patterns through a process called myelination. Every time you use a neural pathway, your brain wraps it in a fatty substance called myelin, which makes the signal travel faster and stronger. The more you use a pathway, the more myelinated it becomes, and the more automatic the behavior becomes. This is why breaking habits gets harder the longer you've had them. The terrifying reality is that most people are living their lives on autopilot without even realizing it. They think they're making conscious choices, but they're actually just following the same neural programs over and over again. They wake up, check their phone, feel stressed about their to-do list, procrastinate on important tasks, distract themselves with entertainment, feel guilty about their lack of productivity, and then repeat the same cycle the next day. Your subconscious mind is processing 11 million bits of information per second, while your conscious mind can only handle about 40 bits per second. This means that 99.9% of your mental processing is happening below your conscious awareness. Your subconscious is making decisions, filtering information, and directing your behavior based on programs that were installed years ago. This is why you can consciously want to change a habit while simultaneously finding yourself doing the exact opposite behavior. Your conscious mind is like a small rider trying to direct a massive elephant. The elephant represents your subconscious mind, and it's much more powerful than the rider. If the elephant wants to go in a different direction than the rider, the elephant will win every time. The good news is that neuroplasticity means your brain can form new neural pathways at any age. But here's what most people don't understand. Creating new pathways isn't enough. You have to make them stronger than the old pathways. This requires a strategic approach that goes far beyond just trying to repeat new behaviors. You need to understand how to accelerate the formation of new neural pathways, while simultaneously weakening the old ones. Chapter 4. The 3 Deadly Lies That Keep You Enslaved to Weak Habits. There are 3 lies that society, the self-help industry, and even well-meaning people in your life have told you about habits. These lies are not just wrong. They're actively sabotaging your ability to create lasting change. As long as you believe these lies, you will remain trapped in cycles of temporary motivation, followed by inevitable relapse back to your old patterns. The first deadly lie is that changing habits is about willpower and discipline. This lie has convinced millions of people that they're weak or lazy when they fail to maintain new habits. The truth is that willpower is like a muscle that gets fatigued with use. Every decision you make throughout the day depletes your willpower reserves. By evening, when your willpower is exhausted, your old habits take over because they require no conscious effort. Successful people don't have more willpower than you. They have better systems. They've learned to automate their success behaviors, so they don't have to rely on willpower to do the right things. They've structured their environment and their routines so that good choices become easy and bad choices become difficult. They understand that willpower is an emergency measure, not a long-term strategy. The second deadly lie is that you can eliminate bad habits by simply stopping them. This lie ignores the fundamental reality of how your brain works. Neural pathways, once formed, never disappear. They can become dormant, but they remain in your brain forever, ready to reactivate when triggered. This is why people can break a habit for months or even years and then suddenly find themselves right back where they started. The only way to overcome a bad habit is to replace it with a good habit that satisfies the same underlying need. If you try to eliminate a habit without replacing it, you're leaving a void that your brain will eventually fill with something else, often something worse than the original habit. This is why people who quit smoking often gain weight, or why people who stop drinking often become workaholics. Every habit exists because it serves a function. Procrastination might protect you from the fear of failure. Social media scrolling might provide relief from boredom or social connection. Overeating might offer comfort during stressful times. Until you identify what function your bad habit is serving and find a healthier way to meet that need, you'll be fighting an impossible battle. The third deadly lie is that small changes are enough to create transformation. The self-help industry loves to promote the idea that tiny changes lead to massive results. While consistency is important, the reality is that significant transformation requires significant intervention. If your current habits have been reinforced for years or decades, making tiny adjustments is like trying to redirect a freight train by pushing gently on one side. Real transformation happens when you create enough leverage to break through your existing patterns. This means making changes that are significant enough to disrupt your current neural programming. It means creating new experiences that are so different from your current reality that they force your brain to form new pathways. The start small advice can actually keep you trapped in mediocrity, because small changes don't generate enough momentum to overcome the gravitational pull of your existing habits. Small changes feel safe and comfortable, which is exactly why they don't work. Your brain only creates new neural pathways when it perceives that change is necessary for survival or significant reward. These three lies have created a culture of people who are constantly trying and failing to change their habits. They start with enthusiasm, make some progress, encounter resistance from their old programming, and then conclude that they just don't have what it takes. They blame themselves instead of recognizing that they've been following flawed strategies based on fundamental misunderstandings about how the brain works. The truth is that changing habits is not about being stronger or more disciplined. It's about being smarter. It's about understanding the science of behavior change and using that knowledge to work with your brain instead of against it. It's about recognizing that your current habits are not character flaws. They're simply neural programs that can be updated with the right approach. Breaking free from these lies is the first step toward real transformation. Once you understand that willpower is not the answer, that replacement is more effective than elimination, and that significant change requires significant intervention, you can stop beating yourself up for past failures and start implementing strategies that actually work. The people who achieve lasting change are not superhuman. They simply understand how their brains work and use that knowledge to their advantage. They've learned to hack their own neural programming to create automatic success behaviors. And that's exactly what you're about to learn how to do. Chapter 5. The Identity-Based Transformation System. Becoming someone who doesn't have weak habits. Every habit you have is a reflection of your identity. The reason you have certain habits is not because you lack willpower or discipline. It's because those habits are consistent with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who is disorganized, you'll have habits that reinforce disorganization. If you see yourself as someone who lacks self-control, you'll have habits that reinforce that belief. Your habits are simply the external expression of your internal identity. This is why most people fail to change their habits long-term. They try to change their behaviors without changing their identity. They want to exercise regularly while still seeing themselves as a lazy person. They want to eat healthy while still identifying as someone who has no willpower around food. They want to be productive while still believing they're a procrastinator by nature. Your brain is designed to keep your behaviors consistent with your identity. When your actions don't match your identity, you experience psychological tension called cognitive dissonance. Your brain will always resolve this tension by pulling you back to behaviors that match your self-concept. This is why temporary motivation and willpower approaches always fail eventually. They're fighting against your fundamental sense of who you are. The most powerful way to change your habits is to change your identity first. Instead of trying to act like a different person, you need to actually become a different person at the identity level. This isn't about fake it till you make it positive thinking. This is about systematically rewiring your self-concept through evidence-based identity transformation. Your identity is not fixed. It's simply a collection of beliefs you have about yourself, and beliefs can be changed. Every time you perform an action, you're casting a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. Every time you go to the gym, you're voting for the identity of being a fit person. Every time you choose a healthy meal, you're voting for the identity of being someone who takes care of their body. Every time you do the hard work instead of procrastinating, you're voting for the identity of being a disciplined person. The key is to start with small actions that are consistent with your desired identity and gradually increase the evidence until your brain accepts this new identity as true. If you want to become someone who doesn't procrastinate, start by doing one small task immediately instead of putting it off. If you want to become someone who is organized, start by making your bed every morning. These actions might seem insignificant, but they're actually powerful identity-shifting tools. Most people approach habits backwards. They focus on what they want to achieve instead of who they want to become. They say, "I want to lose 20 pounds," instead of, "I want to become someone who takes excellent care of their body." They say, "I want to read more books," instead of, "I want to become someone who values continuous learning." When you focus on outcomes instead of identity, you're setting yourself up for failure because outcomes are temporary, but identity is permanent. Identity-based change works because it aligns your conscious goals with your subconscious programming. When you truly see yourself as a disciplined person, discipline stops feeling like something you have to force yourself to do. It becomes something you naturally do because it's who you are. When you see yourself as someone who values their health, making healthy choices becomes automatic because unhealthy choices would be inconsistent with your identity. The fastest way to change your identity is through what I call identity evidence collection. Every day, you need to collect evidence that supports your desired identity. This means consciously choosing actions, no matter how small, that are consistent with who you want to become. Every piece of evidence strengthens the neural pathways associated with your new identity and weakens the pathways associated with your old identity. Your brain is constantly looking for evidence to confirm your beliefs about yourself. If you believe you're undisciplined, your brain will notice every time you procrastinate and ignore every time you follow through on a commitment. If you believe you're someone who takes action, your brain will notice every time you do something productive and downplay the times you don't. This is why it's crucial to deliberately collect evidence of your desired identity. Keep a daily record of every action you take that's consistent with who you want to become. Celebrate these moments, no matter how small they seem. Your brain will start to pay attention to this evidence and gradually shift your self-concept accordingly. The most successful people understand that they are not trying to build habits. They are trying to reinforce their identity. They don't say, "I'm trying to exercise more." They say, "I'm the type of person who takes care of their body." They don't say, "I'm trying to be more productive." They say, "I'm the type of person who makes things happen." This subtle shift in language represents a fundamental shift in approach that makes all the difference. When your identity changes, your habits change automatically. You don't have to force yourself to act differently, because acting differently becomes natural. This is the difference between temporary behavior change and permanent transformation. Identity change creates habits that stick because they're not something you do. They're expressions of who you are. Chapter 6. The Environmental Reprogramming Protocol. How your surroundings control your mind. Your environment is silently programming your brain every single moment of every single day. And most people have no idea this is happening. While you're focused on trying to build willpower and discipline, your environment is working against you, triggering weak habits and making failure almost inevitable. The most successful people understand a fundamental truth that average people completely ignore. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your environment. Every single thing in your physical space is either reinforcing your desired identity or undermining it. Every app on your phone, every item on your desk, every snack in your kitchen, every piece of furniture in your room is sending signals to your subconscious about who you are and what behaviors are normal for you. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for cues about how to behave. And these environmental triggers are far more powerful than your conscious intentions. Here's what most people don't understand. Your environment doesn't just influence your behavior, it literally rewires your brain. Every time you encounter an environmental cue that triggers a habit, you strengthen the neural pathway between that cue and the behavior. If your phone is always visible, your brain strengthens the connection between seeing your phone and checking it. If junk food is easily accessible in your kitchen, your brain strengthens the connection between being in the kitchen and eating unhealthy food. The people who successfully eliminate weak habits don't rely on willpower to resist temptation. They design their environment so that temptation doesn't exist in the first place. They understand that every decision they have to make throughout the day depletes their mental energy. So they minimize the number of decisions required by making their environment work for them instead of against them. Environmental design works because it leverages your brain's natural tendency to automate behaviors. Instead of fighting against this automation, you're working with it by ensuring that the automated behaviors serve your goals rather than sabotage them. When your environment consistently promotes certain behaviors, those behaviors become automatic without requiring any conscious effort. The first step in environmental reprogramming is conducting what I call an environmental audit. You need to systematically examine every aspect of your physical space and identify all the cues that are triggering weak habits. Look at your bedroom, your workspace, your kitchen, your car, and your phone. What behaviors are these environments encouraging? What habits are they making easier? What temptations are they presenting? Most people's environments are designed for failure without them realizing it. They have their phone charging next to their bed, ensuring that checking social media is the first and last thing they do each day. They have junk food visible in their kitchen, making unhealthy eating the path of least resistance. They have their workspace cluttered with distractions, making focus almost impossible. They've created environments that make weak habits inevitable and strong habits difficult. The solution is to reverse engineer your environment based on the identity you want to embody. If you want to become someone who reads regularly, make books visible and accessible while making distractions like TV and phone less prominent. If you want to become someone who exercises consistently, lay out your workout clothes the night before and remove any barriers to exercise. If you want to become someone who eats healthy, stock your kitchen with nutritious foods and remove processed foods from easy reach. Environmental reprogramming works on multiple levels simultaneously. It reduces the friction for good habits while increasing the friction for bad habits. It provides visual reminders of your desired identity throughout the day. It eliminates decision fatigue by making the right choice the obvious choice. It leverages social proof by surrounding yourself with items and spaces that reflect who you want to become. Your phone deserves special attention because it's probably the most psychologically manipulative device in your environment. Social media companies have spent billions of dollars studying how to make their apps as addictive as possible. They use variable reward schedules, social validation mechanisms, and fear of missing out triggers to keep you checking constantly. Your phone is literally designed to hijack your attention and create compulsive checking behaviors. The solution is not to rely on willpower to resist your phone. The solution is to strategically design your phone environment to support your goals. Remove social media apps and replace them with educational apps. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Use grayscale mode to make your phone less visually appealing. Create friction for distracting apps by moving them to hard-to-reach folders or using app timers and restrictions. Your physical workspace has an enormous impact on your productivity and focus. A cluttered, disorganized workspace creates mental clutter and makes deep work almost impossible. Your brain interprets clutter as unfinished tasks, which creates background stress and reduces cognitive performance. A clean, organized workspace signals to your brain that you're someone who values, focus, and gets things done. The lighting, temperature, and noise levels in your environment also affect your brain function and behavior patterns. Poor lighting can cause fatigue and reduce motivation. Excessive noise can increase stress hormones and impair concentration. Uncomfortable temperatures can drain mental energy and make you more likely to choose easy, comfortable behaviors over challenging ones. Environmental design also includes the digital environments you inhabit. The websites you visit, the content you consume, the people you follow on social media, and the videos you watch are all programming your brain and shaping your beliefs about what's possible. If you're constantly consuming content that reinforces limiting beliefs or promotes weak habits, you're essentially programming yourself for failure. The most powerful environmental change you can make is surrounding yourself with people who embody the identity you want to develop. Your social environment is the strongest environmental factor influencing your behavior. If you spend time with people who have weak habits, those habits will seem normal and acceptable. If you spend time with people who have strong habits, those habits will become your new normal. Remember, your environment is not neutral. It's either helping you become who you want to be or preventing you from becoming who you want to be. There is no middle ground. Every environmental cue is either a vote for your desired identity or a vote against it. The people who achieve lasting transformation understand that changing their environment is not optional. It's essential. Chapter 7. The Neural Pathway Replacement System. How to overwrite weak habits at the brain level. Your weak habits exist as neural superhighways in your brain, and trying to eliminate them through willpower is like trying to stop a freight train with your bare hands. The only way to overcome a deeply ingrained habit is to build a stronger neural pathway that overrides it. This is not about suppressing or fighting your old habits. This is about strategically replacing them with new neural programs that serve your goals. Understanding this principle will completely change how you approach habit change. Most people try to eliminate habits by simply stopping the behavior, but this leaves the underlying neural pathway intact and ready to reactivate at the first sign of stress or weakness. Successful habit change requires building new pathways that are stronger, more automatic, and more rewarding than the old ones. Every habit follows what neuroscientists call the habit loop. Cue, routine, reward. The cue is the trigger that initiates the habit. The routine is the behavior itself. And the reward is the benefit your brain receives from completing the routine. Your brain automates this loop to conserve energy, which is why habits become unconscious over time. To replace a weak habit, you need to identify each component of this loop and systematically reprogram it. The cue is the environmental or internal trigger that starts the habit sequence. This could be a specific time of day, a particular location, an emotional state, the presence of other people, or an immediately preceding action. Your brain has learned to associate this cue with the routine that follows, creating an automatic trigger response pattern. Identifying your habit cues requires careful observation and honest self-reflection. Most people are unconscious of their habit cues, which is why they feel like their weak habits just happen automatically without any warning. But every habit has a cue, and once you identify it, you can begin to disrupt the automatic pattern. Start paying attention to what happens immediately before you engage in a weak habit. What were you thinking? How were you feeling? Where were you? What time was it? Who was around you? The routine is the behavior itself, and this is what most people focus on when trying to change habits. But the routine is just the visible symptom of a deeper neural program. Trying to change the routine without addressing the cue and reward is like trying to change the direction of a river without changing the landscape that guides its flow. The routine will always revert to its original pattern unless you change the underlying structure. The reward is what your brain gets from completing the habit, and this is the most misunderstood component of habit change. The reward is not always obvious or logical. The reward for checking social media might not be entertainment. It might be social connection or relief from boredom. The reward for procrastinating might not be laziness. It might be protection from the fear of failure or judgment. Every weak habit exists because it provides some type of reward, even if that reward is ultimately harmful or counterproductive. Your brain doesn't judge whether rewards are good or bad for your long-term success. It simply seeks to repeat behaviors that provide immediate neurochemical satisfaction. Understanding what reward your weak habit is providing is crucial for finding a healthier replacement. The neural pathway replacement system works by keeping the same cue and reward while changing the routine. This leverages your brain's existing neural infrastructure while redirecting it toward a more beneficial behavior. For example, if your cue is feeling stressed and your current routine is scrolling social media for the reward of distraction, you could replace the routine with deep breathing or exercise, while maintaining the same cue and achieving a similar reward. This approach works because it doesn't require building entirely new neural pathways from scratch. Instead, it modifies existing pathways, which is much faster and more sustainable. Your brain already knows when to look for the reward, so you're simply teaching it a new way to obtain that reward. Implementation requires systematic experimentation. You need to test different replacement routines to find one that provides a similar reward to your weak habit. This might take several attempts, and you need to be patient with the process. Your brain will naturally resist change and try to revert to the familiar routine, especially during the first few weeks when the new pathway is still weak. The key to accelerating neural pathway replacement is increasing the reward value of your new routine. If your replacement habit provides a bigger or more satisfying reward than your weak habit, your brain will naturally prefer it over time. This might mean gamifying your new habit, tracking your progress, celebrating small wins, or linking it to a bigger sense of purpose and identity. Repetition is crucial for strengthening new neural pathways. But not all repetition is equal. Focused, intentional repetition is much more effective than mindless repetition. Every time you consciously choose your new routine instead of your old one, especially during moments when you feel the urge for your weak habit, you're powerfully strengthening the new pathway. The most important factor in pathway replacement is consistency during the formation period. Research shows that it takes an average of 66 days to form a new automatic habit, but this can vary significantly depending on the complexity of the behavior and the strength of the existing pathway you're trying to replace. During this critical formation period, any return to the old habit weakens your new pathway and extends the time required for automation. Environmental modification dramatically accelerates neural pathway replacement. By changing the environmental cues that trigger your weak habits, you reduce the activation of old pathways while promoting the activation of new ones. This is why it's often easier to build new habits in new environments rather than trying to change existing habits in the same environment where they were formed. The ultimate goal is to make your new habit more automatic than your old habit. When this happens, you'll find yourself naturally choosing the beneficial behavior without conscious effort or decision-making. Your new neural pathway will become the default route your brain takes when encountering the trigger cue, and your weak habit will fade into dormancy. Chapter 8. The Compound Destruction Protocol. Understanding how small, weak habits destroy your entire life. While you're focused on the obvious big problems in your life, small, weak habits are silently compounding in the background, creating massive destruction that you won't see until it's too late. Most people dramatically underestimate the long-term impact of their daily choices because the consequences aren't immediately visible. But compound effects work both ways. Just as small positive actions compound into extraordinary results, small negative actions compound into extraordinary failure. The Compound Destruction Protocol reveals how seemingly insignificant weak habits accumulate over time to create the life you don't want. Every time you choose immediate gratification over long-term success, every time you avoid discomfort instead of embracing growth, every time you distract yourself instead of facing reality, you're not just making an isolated bad decision. You're casting a vote for a version of yourself that you'll eventually have to live with. Here's what makes compound destruction so dangerous. It operates below the threshold of immediate consequence. Checking your phone once doesn't ruin your focus. Skipping exercise for one day doesn't destroy your health. Procrastinating on one important task doesn't derail your career. But these seemingly harmless choices create neural patterns that become increasingly automatic and destructive over time. Your brain doesn't evaluate the long-term consequences of your daily choices. It only responds to immediate feedback. This evolutionary programming worked in ancestral environments where most consequences were immediate and obvious. But in today's world, the most important consequences are delayed and invisible. Your brain's short-term focus becomes your biggest enemy in a world where success requires long-term thinking. Consider the true cost of common weak habits over time. Spending just 30 minutes per day on mindless social media scrolling equals 182 hours per year, or more than 4 full work weeks of lost time. Over a decade, that's nearly a full year of your life consumed by meaningless content. And that's just the time cost, not including the attention residue, mood impacts, and cognitive fragmentation that carry over into other activities. The procrastination habit compounds into far more than just delayed tasks. Every time you procrastinate, you're training your brain that discomfort is to be avoided rather than embraced. You're strengthening neural pathways associated with avoidance and weakness, while weakening pathways associated with discipline and growth. Over time, this programming spreads beyond specific tasks to become a general approach to life where you consistently choose comfort over challenge. Weak habits compound because they reinforce limiting beliefs about yourself. Every time you give in to a weak habit, you're providing evidence to your subconscious that you lack discipline, that you can't be trusted to follow through on commitments, and that you're the type of person who chooses short-term pleasure over long-term success. These beliefs then influence future decisions, creating a downward spiral of increasingly self-defeating behavior. The attention destruction caused by weak habits might be the most devastating compound effect of all. In a world where focus is the ultimate competitive advantage, habits that fragment your attention are career killers. The constant task switching caused by checking emails, notifications, and social media doesn't just waste time, it literally rewires your brain for distraction and makes deep work progressively more difficult. Research shows that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. If you check your phone 10 times during a workday, you're ensuring that you never achieve the deep focus required for high-level thinking and problem-solving. Over time, your brain loses the ability to sustain attention on challenging tasks, making you increasingly dependent on external stimulation and instant gratification. Weak habits also compound through what psychologists call ego depletion. Every time you resist a temptation or make a difficult choice, you exhaust your willpower reserves. But weak habits force you to resist the same temptations over and over again, constantly draining your mental energy and leaving you with less capacity for important decisions and creative work. The social compound effects of weak habits are equally devastating. Other people unconsciously mirror the behaviors they observe. So your weak habits influence the people around you to develop similar patterns. If you're constantly distracted by your phone, the people you spend time with will become more distracted. If you consistently choose comfort over challenge, you'll attract and encourage similar attitudes in others. Weak habits compound financially through what economists call opportunity cost. Every hour you spend on weak habits is an hour you could have spent developing valuable skills, building relationships, creating value, or improving your health. The money you don't earn, save, or invest because of weak habits compounds over time into massive differences in wealth and financial security. Your health is perhaps the most dramatic example of compound destruction. Poor eating habits, sedentary behavior, inadequate sleep, and chronic stress might not kill you tomorrow, but they're systematically breaking down your body's systems in ways that will dramatically impact your quality of life decades from now. The energy, vitality, and mental clarity you lose to weak habits compounds into a completely different life trajectory. The emotional compound effects are equally devastating. Weak habits often provide temporary relief from negative emotions, but they never address the underlying causes of those emotions. Over time, this avoidance strategy trains your brain to be increasingly intolerant of discomfort and less capable of emotional regulation. You become progressively more dependent on external sources of comfort and less able to find satisfaction in meaningful but challenging activities. Understanding compound destruction changes how you evaluate your daily choices. Instead of asking whether a choice will hurt you today, you start asking whether it's moving you toward or away from the person you want to become. You begin to see that every choice is either building the life you want or building the life you don't want. There is no neutral. The people who achieve extraordinary success understand that success is not about making perfect choices. It's about consistently making slightly better choices that compound over time. They understand that their current reality is the compound result of thousands of small decisions made over years, and their future reality will be determined by the small decisions they make starting today. Breaking free from compound destruction requires shifting from short-term thinking to long-term thinking. You need to develop the ability to feel the future consequences of your present choices, even when those consequences aren't immediately visible. This requires training your brain to value delayed gratification over immediate pleasure and to see temporary discomfort as an investment in future success. Chapter 9. The Mental Toughness Training System. Building an unbreakable mind that automatically rejects weak habits. Mental toughness is not about being emotionally numb or suppressing your feelings. Mental toughness is about developing the psychological resilience to consistently choose long-term success over short-term comfort. even when everything inside you is screaming for the easy path. It's about building a mind that automatically rejects weak habits, because weakness has become incompatible with your core identity. Most people misunderstand mental toughness completely. They think it's about grinding through pain or forcing yourself to do things you hate. But true mental toughness is about developing such a strong sense of purpose and identity that difficult choices become easy choices. When you have mental toughness, you don't have to force yourself to avoid weak habits. You naturally avoid them because they're inconsistent with who you are. Your current level of mental toughness was shaped by years of either avoiding discomfort or embracing it. Every time you chose the easy path when a hard path was available, you trained your brain that discomfort is something to be avoided. Every time you quit when things got difficult, you reinforced neural pathways associated with giving up. Your brain learned that you're the type of person who chooses comfort over growth. But mental toughness is not a fixed trait. It's a skill that can be developed through deliberate practice. Just like physical strength is built by progressively challenging your muscles, mental strength is built by progressively challenging your psychological comfort zone. Every time you choose discomfort over comfort, you're building mental muscle that makes future difficult choices easier. The foundation of mental toughness is learning to reframe your relationship with discomfort. Most people see discomfort as a signal that something is wrong and needs to be avoided. Mentally tough people see discomfort as a signal that growth is happening and needs to be embraced. They understand that all meaningful progress requires moving through discomfort, and they've trained themselves to associate temporary discomfort with long-term success. This reframing process literally rewires your brain's response to challenging situations. Instead of activating fight-or-flight responses when you encounter difficulty, your brain begins to activate growth and learning responses. Stress hormones like cortisol are replaced with growth hormones like testosterone and growth factors that actually enhance performance and resilience. Mental toughness training requires systematically exposing yourself to controlled discomfort in order to expand your tolerance for stress and challenge. This is not about punishing yourself or creating unnecessary suffering. It's about strategically building your capacity to handle the inevitable difficulties that come with pursuing meaningful goals. The most effective mental toughness training involves 3 types of challenges. Physical challenges that push your body beyond its comfort zone. Cognitive challenges that force your brain to work harder than it wants to. And emotional challenges that require you to act despite fear or anxiety. Each type of challenge strengthens different aspects of mental resilience. Physical challenges are the most straightforward because they provide immediate feedback about your mental state. Cold showers, intense exercise, fasting, or other forms of controlled physical stress teach your brain that you can handle discomfort without breaking. Every time you stay in a cold shower longer than you want to, you're proving to your subconscious that you're stronger than your immediate impulses. Cognitive challenges involve forcing your brain to focus despite distractions, solve difficult problems despite frustration, or learn complex skills despite confusion. Reading challenging books, solving complex puzzles, learning new languages, or mastering difficult skills all build cognitive resilience. Your brain learns that temporary confusion and struggle are normal parts of growth rather than signals to quit. Emotional challenges require acting according to your values despite fear, anxiety, or social pressure. This might mean having difficult conversations, taking calculated risks, standing up for your beliefs, or pursuing goals that others don't understand. Every time you act courageously despite emotional discomfort, you strengthen your emotional resilience and expand your capacity for future challenges. The key to effective mental toughness training is progressive overload, the same principle used in physical training. You start with challenges that are difficult but manageable, and gradually increase the intensity as your mental capacity grows. If you try to take on challenges that are too far beyond your current capacity, you'll overwhelm your nervous system and potentially create trauma rather than growth. Mental toughness also requires developing what psychologists call distress tolerance, the ability to experience negative emotions without immediately trying to escape or numb them. Most weak habits are escape mechanisms that people use to avoid uncomfortable emotions like boredom, anxiety, loneliness, or frustration. When you develop distress tolerance, you no longer need these escape mechanisms because you can sit with discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. Meditation and mindfulness practices are powerful tools for building distress tolerance because they train your brain to observe thoughts and emotions without immediately reacting to them. You learn that thoughts and emotions are temporary experiences that arise and pass away, rather than permanent aspects of your identity that must be acted upon. Self-talk is a critical component of mental toughness because the way you interpret challenges determines how you respond to them. Mentally tough people have trained themselves to use empowering self-talk that reframes challenges as opportunities and setbacks as learning experiences. They've eliminated victim language and excuse-making from their internal dialogue. The stories you tell yourself about your capabilities and potential have enormous power over your behavior. If you tell yourself that you're naturally weak or undisciplined, you'll unconsciously look for evidence to confirm this belief. If you tell yourself that you're becoming stronger and more capable every day, you'll unconsciously look for evidence to confirm that belief instead. Mental toughness training also involves systematically eliminating sources of mental weakness from your life. This includes reducing exposure to negative media, avoiding people who reinforce limiting beliefs, and eliminating activities that drain your mental energy without providing meaningful value. You need to protect your mental environment just as carefully as you protect your physical environment. The ultimate goal of mental toughness training is developing what psychologists call anti-fragility, the ability to become stronger as a result of stress and challenges rather than being weakened by them. When you reach this level, setbacks become opportunities for growth, criticism becomes fuel for improvement, and obstacles become stepping stones to greater success. Chapter 10. The 90-Day Neural Reprogramming Challenge. The complete system to eliminate weak habits forever. Everything you've learned up to this point has been building toward this moment. The complete 90-day system that will eliminate your weak habits at the neurological level and replace them with automatic success behaviors. This is not another temporary motivation program. This is a comprehensive protocol designed to rewire your brain based on cutting-edge neuroscience research and battle-tested by thousands of people who have successfully transformed their lives. The 90-day timeframe is not arbitrary. Neuroscience research shows that it takes approximately 66 to 90 days of consistent practice to fully automate a new behavior and create lasting changes in brain structure. This is the minimum amount of time required for new neural pathways to become stronger than old ones and for new behaviors to become truly automatic rather than consciously controlled. The system is divided into 3 30-day phases, each designed to build upon the previous phase and address different aspects of neural reprogramming. Phase 1 focuses on disrupting old patterns and creating initial momentum. Phase 2 focuses on building new neural pathways and strengthening your desired identity. Phase 3 focuses on automation and long-term sustainability. During Phase 1, your primary goal is pattern disruption. You're going to systematically identify and interrupt the automatic habit loops that have been controlling your behavior. This phase requires the most conscious effort and willpower because you're fighting against deeply ingrained patterns. But it becomes progressively easier as you weaken old neural pathways and begin building new ones. Start by selecting one primary weak habit to eliminate and one primary strong habit to install. Trying to change multiple habits simultaneously will overwhelm your nervous system and reduce your chances of success. Choose the weak habit that is having the biggest negative impact on your life, and the strong habit that will have the biggest positive impact. Everything else can wait until these habits are fully automated. Document everything during Phase 1. Keep a detailed habit journal that tracks your triggers, emotions, circumstances, and responses every time you engage in either your weak habit or your strong habit. This data collection serves multiple purposes. It increases your awareness of unconscious patterns, provides evidence of your progress, and helps you identify the specific environmental and emotional triggers that need to be addressed. Environmental modification is crucial during Phase 1. You need to systematically remove or modify every environmental cue that triggers your weak habit, while adding environmental cues that support your strong habit. This might mean rearranging your physical space, changing your routine, avoiding certain locations or people, or modifying your digital environment. The identity shift begins immediately in Phase 1. Start using language that reflects your desired identity rather than your current reality. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to quit," use, "I'm not someone who does this anymore." Instead of saying, "I'm working on being more disciplined," use, "I'm a disciplined person." Your subconscious mind pays attention to the language you use and begins to adjust your behavior to match your self-description. Phase 2 is about building and strengthening new neural pathways through deliberate practice and repetition. By this point, you should have significantly weakened your old habit patterns and begun to establish new ones. Now you're going to accelerate the formation of new pathways through strategic repetition and reward optimization. Stack your new habit with existing strong habits to leverage neural infrastructure that's already automated. If you want to build a reading habit, attach it to your existing coffee routine. If you want to build an exercise habit, attach it to your existing morning routine. This technique, called habit stacking, makes new behaviors easier to remember and implement. Increase the reward value of your new habit through celebration and tracking. Every time you successfully choose your strong habit over your weak habit, consciously acknowledge this success and feel proud of your progress. Your brain needs to associate your new behavior with positive emotions in order to prefer it over your old behavior. Implement accountability systems during Phase 2. Share your goal with someone you respect. Join a community of people working on similar changes, or hire a coach who will hold you accountable for your commitment. External accountability provides additional motivation when your internal motivation wavers and helps you maintain consistency during challenging periods. Phase 3 is about automation and long-term sustainability. By this point, your new habit should feel increasingly natural and your old habit should feel increasingly foreign. Your goal is to make your new behavior so automatic that it requires no conscious effort or decision-making. Test your automation by introducing controlled stress and challenges. Habits that only work when conditions are perfect are not truly automated. Your new behaviors need to be resilient enough to survive difficult days, stressful periods, and unexpected circumstances. Deliberately create challenging conditions to strengthen your new neural pathways under pressure. Plan for potential relapses and develop recovery protocols. Even with perfect execution, you may occasionally slip back into old patterns, especially during periods of high stress or major life changes. Having a predetermined plan for quickly returning to your new habits prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent reversals. Expand your success to additional habits only after your primary habit is fully automated. Once your new behavior requires no conscious effort and feels completely natural, you can begin working on the next most important habit change. This sequential approach is much more effective than trying to change everything at once. The 90-day challenge requires complete commitment and consistency. Missing even a single day during the formation period significantly extends the time required for automation and increases the likelihood of failure. Your brain needs constant reinforcement to build new pathways stronger than old ones. Success metrics should focus on consistency rather than perfection. You're not trying to perform your new habit perfectly. You're trying to perform it consistently enough to create automation. Track your consistency percentage and celebrate maintaining streaks rather than focusing on how well you executed the habit on any given day. The compound effects become visible around day 60 when your new neural pathways are strong enough to feel natural and your old pathways are weak enough to feel foreign. This is when the transformation shifts from effortful to effortless, from conscious choice to automatic behavior. By day 90, your new habit should feel like an essential part of who you are, rather than something you have to remember to do. Chapter 11. Advanced Neuroplasticity Hacking. The elite-level techniques most people never discover. You now understand the fundamentals of neural reprogramming. But if you want to accelerate your transformation beyond what 99% of people achieve, you need to implement advanced neuroplasticity techniques that most people never discover. These are the cutting-edge strategies used by elite performers who need to rewire their brains faster and more completely than the average person. The first advanced technique is neural priming, which involves strategically preparing your brain for new habit formation before you even attempt the behavior. Your brain's neuroplasticity is not constant throughout the day. It fluctuates based on your mental state, hormone levels, and recent activities. By understanding these fluctuations, you can time your habit practice during periods of maximum brain adaptability. Research shows that neuroplasticity is highest immediately after physical exercise, during the first hour after waking, and during periods of novel learning. Your brain releases brain-derived neurotrophic factor during these times, which acts like fertilizer for new neural pathway formation. Elite habit builders schedule their most important habit practice during these windows of enhanced neuroplasticity. The second advanced technique is sensory stacking, which involves engaging multiple senses during habit practice to create stronger and more durable neural pathways. Most people only engage one or two senses when building habits, but your brain forms much stronger memories and automated behaviors when multiple sensory channels are activated simultaneously. For example, if you're building a reading habit, don't just read silently. Read aloud while walking in a specific location with particular background music and a distinctive scent in the air. This creates a multi-sensory neural network that makes the habit much easier to trigger and much more resistant to extinction. Your brain literally has multiple pathways to access the same behavior pattern. Emotional amplification is perhaps the most powerful neuroplasticity hack available. Emotions are not just feelings, they're neural chemicals that determine how strongly memories are encoded and how quickly behaviors become automatic. Habits formed during states of intense emotion become automated much faster than habits formed in neutral emotional states. This means you need to intentionally create emotional intensity around your new habits. Connect your habit to your deepest values and most important life goals. Visualize the long-term consequences of success and failure with vivid emotional detail. Create rituals and celebrations that generate positive emotions when you complete your habit. Your brain will prioritize behaviors that are emotionally significant. The third technique is cognitive load manipulation. Your brain's ability to form new habits is inversely related to the amount of mental processing it's doing simultaneously. When your cognitive load is high, your brain defaults to existing automated patterns. When your cognitive load is low, your brain is more open to forming new patterns. This is why it's easier to build new habits early in the morning, when your mental energy is fresh, rather than late at night when your brain is exhausted. It's also why simplifying your environment and reducing decision fatigue during habit formation periods dramatically improves success rates. Elite performers systematically reduce cognitive load during habit formation periods to maximize neuroplasticity. Temporal clustering is an advanced technique that involves practicing your new habit multiple times in short bursts rather than once for a longer duration. Instead of doing one 30-minute workout, you might do 3 10-minute movement sessions spread throughout the day. This creates more opportunities for neural reinforcement and faster pathway development. The spacing effect shows that distributed practice is more effective than massed practice for creating lasting neural changes. Your brain needs time to consolidate new patterns between practice sessions, and multiple shorter sessions provide more consolidation opportunities than single longer sessions. Interference pattern disruption involves deliberately practicing your new habit in different contexts, locations, and circumstances to create robust neural pathways that can't be disrupted by environmental changes. Most people practice habits in the same location and context every day, which creates context-dependent learning that breaks down when circumstances change. Elite habit builders deliberately vary the conditions under which they practice their habits. They practice their morning routine in different locations, at different times, and under different circumstances. This creates context-independent neural pathways that are much more resilient and adaptable. Mirror neuron activation involves practicing your habit while observing others who have already mastered similar behaviors. Mirror neurons fire both when you perform an action and when you observe others performing the same action. This neural mirroring accelerates learning and habit formation by activating the neural pathways associated with the behavior even when you're not actively practicing. Watch videos of people who have mastered the habits you want to develop. Spend time with people who naturally embody the behaviors you're trying to automate. Your mirror neurons will fire and strengthen the neural pathways associated with these behaviors. making them easier to execute when you practice them yourself. The final advanced technique is neural pathway competition, which involves deliberately practicing competing behaviors to strengthen your desired neural pathway through contrast. Instead of just practicing your new habit, you also practice consciously choosing your new habit over your old habit in simulated scenarios. For example, if you're eliminating a social media habit, practice pulling out your phone and then deliberately choosing to put it away without checking it. This creates a stronger neural pathway for impulse control because your brain is actively choosing the new behavior over the old one rather than just avoiding the trigger situation entirely. These advanced techniques require more sophistication and planning than basic habit formation strategies, but they can reduce the time required for automation from 90 days to as little as 30 days for simple habits. They're particularly valuable for people who need to make rapid changes due to career demands, health requirements, or major life transitions. The key to implementing advanced neuroplasticity techniques is systematic experimentation. Try different combinations of techniques to find what works best for your brain and lifestyle. Track your progress carefully and adjust your approach based on results rather than assumptions. Elite performance requires elite strategies, and these techniques will put you in the top 1% of people who successfully transform their habits. Chapter 12. Resistance Protocols. How to overcome the mental warfare. Your brain will wage against change. Your brain will fight against your attempts to eliminate weak habits with the intensity of a cornered animal fighting for survival. This resistance is not a character flaw or lack of motivation. It's a predictable neurobiological response that you can anticipate, understand, and systematically overcome. The people who successfully transform their habits are not the ones who experience less resistance. They're the ones who have developed protocols for navigating resistance when it inevitably appears. Your brain's resistance to change serves an evolutionary purpose. It protected your ancestors from dangerous behaviors that could threaten survival. In a world where most changes were potentially life-threatening, resistance to change was a valuable survival mechanism. But in today's world, this same mechanism prevents you from making beneficial changes that could dramatically improve your life. The resistance will manifest in multiple forms, and you need to be prepared for all of them. Emotional resistance appears as anxiety, fear, frustration, or overwhelming feelings when you try to practice new habits. Cognitive resistance appears as rationalization, excuse-making, and mental stories that justify returning to old patterns. Physical resistance appears as fatigue, restlessness, or physical discomfort when engaging in new behaviors. The most dangerous form of resistance is what I call the extinction burst. This is a temporary but intense increase in your old habit, urges that occurs when your brain realizes its existing programs are being threatened. Just like a light bulb burns brightest right before it burns out, your weak habits will seem more compelling than ever during the period when they're actually dying. Most people interpret the extinction burst as evidence that their new approach isn't working, so they give up right before their breakthrough. They don't realize that intense cravings and urges are actually positive signs that indicate old neural pathways are being successfully disrupted. The extinction burst typically occurs between days 10 and 30 of habit change, and knowing it's coming allows you to prepare for it. The first resistance protocol is cognitive reframing. When resistance appears, instead of fighting against it or trying to suppress it, you're going to reframe it as evidence of progress. Resistance means your brain recognizes that change is happening and is activating its defense mechanisms. The stronger the resistance, the more significant the change you're creating. Develop specific phrases that you'll use when resistance appears. This discomfort means I'm growing. This resistance proves I'm breaking through old patterns. My brain is fighting change because change is actually happening. These reframes shift your relationship with resistance from enemy to ally. The second protocol is the 10-minute rule. When you feel overwhelming resistance to your new habit, commit to doing it for just 10 minutes. This reduces the psychological barrier by making the commitment feel manageable, and it often generates enough momentum to continue beyond the minimum time. Your brain's resistance is usually strongest at the moment of initiation, not during the activity itself. Most resistance is anticipatory, meaning it's worse in your imagination than in reality. Once you start the behavior, the resistance often diminishes significantly. The 10-minute rule exploits this psychological phenomenon by getting you past the initiation barrier, where most resistance occurs. The third protocol is environmental manipulation during resistance periods. When you're experiencing strong urges for your old habit, immediately change your physical environment. Go to a different room, leave your current location, or engage in a completely different activity. This disrupts the environmental cues that are triggering the urges and gives your conscious mind time to regain control. Your brain associates certain environments with certain behaviors, so changing your environment weakens the automatic activation of old habit patterns. This technique is particularly effective during the extinction burst period, when urges are strongest. The urge surfing technique treats resistance like a wave that builds up, peaks, and then, naturally, subsides. Instead of fighting against the urge or immediately giving in to it, you observe it with detached curiosity. Notice how the urge feels in your body, how it changes over time, and how it eventually passes without any action on your part. Research shows that most urges last between 3 and 15 minutes if you don't act on them. By learning to surf these urges, rather than being knocked over by them, you prove to your brain that you can experience the urge without being controlled by it. This gradually weakens the power of the urge and strengthens your sense of self-control. The accountability activation protocol involves immediately contacting your accountability partner or support system when resistance becomes overwhelming. This external support provides perspective, encouragement, and often practical strategies for working through the difficult moment. The simple act of verbalizing your struggle to another person often reduces its emotional intensity. Social support is particularly powerful during resistance periods because your brain is wired to seek safety in connection with others. When you're struggling alone, your brain interprets this as danger and activates stress responses that make resistance stronger. When you're connected to supportive others, your brain relaxes and becomes more open to change. The pre-commitment strategy involves making decisions about how you'll handle resistance before the resistance appears. When your willpower is strong and your thinking is clear, you decide exactly what you'll do when resistance shows up. This removes decision-making from moments when your judgment is compromised by emotional intensity. Write down specific action steps you'll take when you feel like giving up. Create if-then plans that automatically trigger helpful responses. If I feel like checking social media, then I will do 10 push-ups instead. These predetermined responses bypass the need for willpower in the moment, because the decision has already been made. The final resistance protocol is strategic retreat and re-engagement. Sometimes the resistance is so overwhelming that pushing through would create trauma or burnout rather than progress. In these cases, it's better to strategically retreat, regroup, and re-engage when you're in a better state. This is not the same as quitting or giving up. Strategic retreat involves taking a planned break to restore your mental resources, adjusting your approach based on what you've learned, and then re-engaging with a modified strategy. Elite performers know when to push through resistance and when to step back and recalibrate. Remember that resistance is temporary, but the neural changes you're creating are permanent. Every time you successfully navigate resistance without reverting to old patterns, you strengthen your new neural pathways and weaken old ones. Resistance doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're succeeding so effectively that your brain feels threatened by the change. Chapter 13. Social Environment Optimization. How to use others to accelerate your transformation. Your social environment is the most powerful force shaping your habits, yet most people completely ignore its impact when trying to create change. The people you spend time with, the conversations you have, and the social contexts you participate in are constantly programming your brain for either success or mediocrity. If you want to eliminate weak habits permanently, you must strategically optimize your social environment to support your transformation. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures, and your brain is wired to mirror the behaviors, attitudes, and habits of the people around you. This phenomenon, called social contagion, happens automatically below your conscious awareness. When you spend time with people who have certain habits, your brain begins to adopt similar neural patterns through mirror neuron activation and social learning mechanisms. Research shows that you're 50% more likely to become obese if your close friends are obese, 70% more likely to develop drinking problems if your social circle drinks heavily, and 25% more likely to experience happiness if your friends are happy. Your habits don't exist in isolation. They're constantly influenced by the social ecosystem you participate in. This means that trying to change your habits while maintaining the same social environment is like trying to swim upstream. Your social environment creates a gravitational pull towards certain behaviors, and if that pull is opposing your desired changes, you'll be fighting an uphill battle that exhausts your willpower and ultimately leads to failure. The first step in social environment optimization is conducting a social audit. List the people you spend the most time with and honestly evaluate whether each relationship supports or undermines your desired transformation. Consider not just their obvious habits, but their attitudes toward discipline, growth, success, and personal responsibility. Some relationships will clearly support your goals. Others will clearly undermine them. And many will be neutral or mixed. The relationships that clearly undermine your goals require immediate attention because they're actively sabotaging your transformation, even if the people involved have good intentions. You don't necessarily need to end relationships with people who have weak habits, but you do need to modify how you interact with them. This might mean spending less time with them, avoiding certain activities or contexts where weak habits are encouraged, or being more intentional about the topics you discuss and the activities you engage in together. The second step is strategically seeking out people who already embody the habits and identity you want to develop. If you want to become someone who exercises regularly, spend time with people who are passionate about fitness. If you want to become someone who reads consistently, join book clubs or online communities focused on learning and intellectual growth. These relationships provide multiple benefits for habit formation. They normalize the behaviors you want to adopt, making them seem natural and achievable rather than difficult or unusual. They provide social proof that your desired changes are possible and worthwhile. They offer practical knowledge and strategies from people who have already succeeded. They create accountability and encouragement during challenging periods. Online communities can be just as powerful as in-person relationships for habit formation, especially if you can't find local people who share your goals. Join forums, social media groups, or online programs focused on the specific changes you want to make. Participate actively rather than just lurking, and focus on giving value to others rather than just seeking help for yourself. The third step is creating accountability partnerships with people who are also working on habit change. Accountability partnerships work because they leverage your brain's social bonding mechanisms and desire to maintain a positive reputation. When you know someone else is counting on you and monitoring your progress, you're much more likely to follow through on your commitments. Effective accountability partnerships require structure and mutual commitment. Set regular check-in schedules, establish clear metrics for tracking progress, and create consequences for both success and failure. The consequences don't need to be severe, but they need to be meaningful enough to influence your behavior. Share your daily progress. Discuss challenges and obstacles. Celebrate successes together, and problem-solve difficulties as a team. The key is creating genuine investment in each other's success, rather than just superficial progress reporting. The fourth step is environmental anchoring, which involves consistently practicing your new habits in social contexts that support and reinforce them. Instead of trying to build new habits in isolation, practice them around people who already have similar habits or who are working towards similar goals. For example, if you're building a reading habit, do your reading in libraries, coffee shops, or other locations where reading is normal and expected. If you're building an exercise habit, work out in gyms or join fitness classes where exercise is the social norm. The social context reinforces your new identity and makes the behavior feel more natural. The fifth step is conversation optimization. The conversations you have on a daily basis are programming your brain for either growth or stagnation. Conversations focused on complaints, gossip, limitation, and problems train your brain for negative thinking patterns. Conversations focused on goals, learning, possibility, and solutions train your brain for positive thinking patterns. Start steering your conversations toward topics that support your desired identity. Ask people about their goals and growth rather than their problems and complaints. Share your own learning and progress rather than your struggles and frustrations. The language you use and the topics you focus on literally rewire your brain over time. Social modeling is perhaps the most powerful social environment tool. Identify specific people who have already mastered the habits you want to develop and study their behaviors, thinking patterns, and decision-making processes. You're not trying to copy them exactly, but rather to understand the mental models and behavioral patterns that enable their success. Spend time with these people if possible, or study them through interviews, podcasts, books, or other content they've created. Pay attention to how they think about challenges, how they structure their days, what they prioritize, and how they talk about their habits. Your brain will unconsciously absorb these patterns and begin implementing them in your own life. The final step is creating social consequences and rewards for your habit change. Make your goals public in appropriate contexts. Join challenges or competitions related to your habits, and create social celebrations for your progress. Your brain responds powerfully to social recognition and approval, so leveraging these mechanisms accelerates habit formation. Remember that social environment optimization is not about manipulation or using people. It's about creating mutually beneficial relationships that support everyone's growth and success. The best social environments are ones where everyone is committed to helping each other become better versions of themselves. Chapter 14. Maintenance and Evolution. How to make your new identity permanent and continue growing forever. Successfully eliminating weak habits and building strong ones is just the beginning of your transformation journey. The real challenge is maintaining these changes over the long term and continuing to evolve your identity as your life circumstances change. Most people who successfully create initial change fail to maintain it because they don't understand the ongoing maintenance requirements for sustained transformation. Your brain never stops changing. Neuroplasticity continues throughout your entire life, which means your habits are never completely fixed or permanent. This is both an opportunity and a challenge. It means you can continue improving and adapting throughout your life. But it also means you must actively maintain your positive changes or risk sliding back into old patterns. The maintenance phase begins approximately 90 days after you start implementing new habits, when the behaviors have become largely automatic, but haven't yet become deeply ingrained parts of your identity. This is a critical period because many people become overconfident in their progress and reduce their vigilance just when continued attention is most important. The first maintenance principle is progressive overload for habits, borrowed from the world of physical training. Just like muscles need progressively greater challenges to continue growing stronger, your habits need progressively greater challenges to continue developing. Once a habit becomes easy and automatic, you need to add complexity, increase the frequency, or raise the standards to prevent stagnation. For example, if your daily reading habit has become automatic, you might challenge yourself to read more difficult books, increase your reading time, or add note-taking and reflection to your reading practice. The goal is not to make habits harder for the sake of difficulty, but to ensure they continue serving your growth and development rather than becoming mindless routines. The second principle is habit ecosystem thinking. Your habits exist as an interconnected ecosystem, where each habit influences and supports the others. As you add new habits and refine existing ones, you need to consider how they fit together as a cohesive system rather than treating them as isolated behaviors. Strong habit ecosystems have natural synergies where each habit makes the others easier and more rewarding. Exercise habits support learning habits by improving brain function. Learning habits support productivity habits by increasing knowledge and skills. Productivity habits support health habits by creating time and resources for self-care. Design your habits to reinforce each other rather than competing for your limited time and energy. The third principle is seasonal adaptation. Your life circumstances will change over time, due to career transitions, relationship changes, health challenges, family obligations, and other life events. Your habits need to be flexible enough to adapt to these changes while maintaining their essential function and identity reinforcement. This requires developing what I call habit modularity, the ability to modify the specific behaviors while maintaining the underlying identity and purpose. If you're someone who prioritizes learning, but your life circumstances change dramatically, you might need to shift from reading books to listening to podcasts, or from taking classes to having learning conversations with colleagues. The fourth principle is identity evolution. Your identity is not static. It should continue evolving as you grow and develop new capabilities. The person you become through eliminating weak habits is not the final version of yourself. It's simply the next version. Successful long-term transformation requires continuously expanding your identity to encompass new levels of excellence and capability. This means periodically reassessing your habits to ensure they're still serving your highest potential rather than just maintaining your current level. Ask yourself, what would the next level version of myself do differently? What new habits would serve my continued evolution? What existing habits need to be upgraded or refined? The fifth principle is failure resilience. No matter how strong your habits become, you will occasionally fail to maintain them due to stress, illness, travel, or unexpected life events. The key to long-term success is not preventing all failures, but developing rapid recovery protocols that get you back on track quickly. Create specific plans for common failure scenarios. What will you do if you get sick and can't maintain your exercise habit? How will you adapt your learning habit when you're traveling? How will you maintain your productivity habits during stressful periods? Having predetermined recovery plans prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent reversions. The rapid recovery protocol involves 3 steps. Acknowledge the setback without self-judgment. Identify the specific circumstances that led to the failure, and immediately return to your habit routine at the next available opportunity. The length of the setback is less important than the speed of your return to consistency. The sixth principle is continuous education and optimization. Stay connected to new research and strategies related to habit formation and personal development. Your understanding of how to create and maintain positive changes should continue deepening over time. What works at the beginning of your journey may not be optimal as you develop greater sophistication and capability. Join communities of people who are also committed to long-term growth and development. Share your experiences, learn from others, and stay inspired by people who are ahead of you on the journey. Continuous learning prevents complacency and ensures your approach continues evolving with your needs. The seventh principle is teaching and mentoring. One of the most effective ways to cement your own transformation is to help others who are earlier in their journey. Teaching requires you to articulate and clarify your understanding, which deepens your own knowledge. Mentoring creates accountability and purpose that strengthens your commitment to maintaining your own positive changes. Look for opportunities to share your experience and knowledge with others who are struggling with similar challenges. This might involve formal mentoring relationships, creating content that helps others, or simply being more open about your own journey with friends and family members who could benefit from your insights. The final principle is celebration and reflection. Regularly acknowledge and celebrate your progress, both the major milestones and the daily consistencies. Your brain needs positive reinforcement to maintain motivation for continued growth. Create rituals for recognizing your achievements and reflecting on how far you've come. Keep a long-term progress journal that tracks not just your habit consistency, but the broader life changes that have resulted from your transformation. Document improvements in your energy, relationships, career, health, and overall life satisfaction. This creates a powerful motivation source during challenging periods and reminds you why the effort is worthwhile. Remember that maintenance is not about perfection. It's about persistence. The goal is not to never fail or struggle, but to keep growing and improving over time. Every day you maintain your positive habits is a day you're becoming a stronger, more capable version of yourself. The compound effects of this consistency will create results that far exceed what you can currently imagine. Chapter 15. The Point of No Return. Your new life begins now. Everything you've learned in this program has led to this moment. You now possess the knowledge, strategies, and systems necessary to eliminate weak habits from your life forever and replace them with automatic success behaviors. But knowledge without action is worthless, and all the strategies in the world won't help you if you don't implement them starting right now. The difference between people who transform their lives and people who stay trapped in mediocrity is not intelligence, talent, or circumstances. It's the willingness to take immediate action on what they know to be true. Most people will listen to this information, agree that it's valuable, and then continue living exactly as they did before. They'll wait for the perfect moment, the right circumstances, or a burst of motivation that never comes. But you're not most people. You're here because something inside you knows that you're capable of more than you're currently experiencing. You're here because you're tired of being controlled by unconscious patterns that keep you small and average. You're here because you're ready to take control of your mind and start living at the level of your true potential. Your brain is neuroplastic, which means it's constantly changing based on your thoughts, behaviors, and experiences. Every moment you delay implementing these strategies is a moment your brain is strengthening the existing neural pathways that have kept you trapped. Every moment you wait is a moment you're voting for the old version of yourself rather than the new version you want to become. The harsh reality is that there will never be a perfect time to start. There will always be stress, distractions, obligations, and excuses available if you're looking for them. The people who succeed are not the ones who wait for ideal conditions. They're the ones who start with imperfect conditions and improve their situation through action. Your transformation begins with a single decision. The decision to stop being a victim of your own mind and start being the architect of your thoughts and behaviors. This decision must be absolute and non-negotiable. You cannot partially commit to rewiring your brain. You cannot casually implement these strategies when you feel like it. Transformation requires total commitment to becoming someone different than you are today. Start with one habit. Choose the weak habit that is having the biggest negative impact on your life, or the strong habit that would have the biggest positive impact. Apply everything you've learned. Identify the underlying identity that supports this habit. Design your environment to make success inevitable. Use the neural pathway replacement system, implement accountability mechanisms, and commit to 90 days of consistent practice. Document everything. Keep a detailed record of your triggers, emotions, successes, and failures. This data will become invaluable as you refine your approach and expand to additional habits. Your transformation story will inspire others and remind you of your own capability during challenging moments. Understand that resistance is inevitable and prepare for it. Your brain will fight against these changes with everything it has. You will experience urges, rationalization, emotional intensity, and moments when giving up feels like the only rational choice. These experiences are not signs of failure. They're signs that your transformation is working so effectively that your brain feels threatened. Connect with others who are on similar journeys. Join communities, find accountability partners, and surround yourself with people who support your growth rather than your comfort. Your social environment will either accelerate your transformation or sabotage it. Choose people who inspire you to become better rather than people who enable you to stay the same. Celebrate every victory, no matter how small it seems. Each time you choose your new habit over your old one, you're literally rewiring your brain and becoming a different person. These moments deserve recognition and celebration because they're the building blocks of your new identity. Remember that this transformation extends far beyond just changing a few behaviors. You're learning to take control of your own mind, which is the most powerful skill you can develop. Once you master the ability to consciously direct your thoughts and behaviors rather than being controlled by unconscious programming, there is no limit to what you can achieve. The compound effects of this transformation will touch every area of your life. Your relationships will improve because you'll be more present and intentional. Your career will accelerate because you'll have the discipline and focus to do what others won't. Your health will optimize because you'll make choices based on long-term success rather than short-term comfort. Your happiness will increase because you'll be living in alignment with your values rather than being controlled by impulses. But these benefits only come to people who take action. Reading about neuroplasticity doesn't rewire your brain. Understanding habit loops doesn't eliminate weak habits. Knowing about identity-based change doesn't transform your identity. Only consistent, deliberate action creates the neural changes that lead to permanent transformation. The time for preparation is over. The time for research is over. The time for waiting is over. The time for action is now. Your weak habits have controlled you for long enough. Your unconscious patterns have limited you for long enough. Your old identity has defined you for long enough. Starting right now, you have two choices. You can continue living as you have been, controlled by patterns you didn't consciously choose, limited by beliefs you didn't consciously adopt, and trapped by habits that serve your past rather than your future. Or you can take control of your mind, eliminate the weak habits that have been holding you back, and become the person you know you're capable of being. The choice is yours, but understand that not choosing is also a choice. Not taking action is voting for your current reality to continue unchanged. Waiting for tomorrow is the same as choosing never, because tomorrow you'll have the same choice again. And people who don't act today rarely act tomorrow. Your new life is waiting for you on the other side of your comfort zone. Your potential is waiting to be unleashed through disciplined action. Your dreams are waiting to become reality through consistent implementation of these strategies. But they will only wait so long. The moment you decide to implement these strategies is the moment your transformation begins. The moment you choose action over hesitation is the moment you cross the point of no return. The moment you commit to 90 days of rewiring your brain is the moment you start becoming who you were always meant to be. Your weak habits have stolen enough of your life. Your unconscious patterns have wasted enough of your potential. Your old identity has limited you long enough. Today is the day you take back control. Today is the day you start educating your mind to kill weak habits forever. Today is the day your new life begins. The question is, will you start today? Or will you be the same person a year from now, still wishing you had started today? The choice is yours. Your transformation is waiting. Your new identity is calling. Your best life is possible. But it all begins with one decision. The decision to start right now.